A new executive order just dropped that's got everyone talking, but here's why the reality is way different from the headlines. On September 22nd, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. But before you panic or celebrate, let's actually read what this thing says, because the gap between the dramatic title and the actual content is significant. Right off the bat, we have a fundamental issue. Antifa isn't an organization. It's not like ISIS with a headquarters, leadership structure, or membership cards. It's more like a loose ideology or movement. So how do you designate something as a terrorist organization when that something doesn't actually exist as an organization? Let's break down what this executive order actually does, and more importantly, what it doesn't do. Section 1 basically says Antifa is bad and it uses violence. It describes coordinated efforts to obstruct law enforcement and engage in political violence. Fair enough. Violence is bad regardless of who's doing it. Section 2 is where it gets interesting. It designates Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization and tells executive departments to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle operations. Scary, right? But here's the kicker. Section 3 says this order must be, quote, implemented consistent with applicable law, and doesn't create any new rights or authorities. So what does this actually mean in practice? Essentially, it's telling federal agencies, hey, if you find people breaking the law and they're associated with this thing called Antifa, arrest them. But here's the thing. They could already do that. Assault is assault. Vandalism is vandalism. Threatening public officials is already a crime. This order doesn't give anyone any new powers to do anything they couldn't already do. It's basically a very official way of saying, enforce the laws that already exist, which, they were supposed to be doing anyway. There's also a crucial legal point here. Unlike international terrorist organizations, there's no formal legal framework for designating domestic groups as terrorist organizations. The federal government can't just declare American citizens or groups as terrorists the same way they can with foreign entities. This is why the order has to say it will be implemented consistent with applicable law. Because without new legislation from Congress, the actual enforcement tools are incredibly limited. So if this doesn't really do anything new, why issue it? Well, it's clearly political messaging. It sends a signal about priorities and creates a framework for how the administration wants to talk about and approach certain types of groups or things that they deem political violence. Some will see this as necessary law and order. Others will see it for what it is, targeting political opposition. The truth is, it's mostly symbolic. It's a way to appear tough on political violence without actually having the legal tools to do much beyond what's already possible. The real question isn't whether this order will lead to mass arrests. It probably won't, at least not directly. The question is whether it contributes to a broader climate where political opposition gets labeled as terrorism, and whether that's a road we want to go down as a country. Because while this order might not have teeth, it does normalize the language of treating domestic political movements as terrorist threats. Bottom line, despite the dramatic headlines, this executive order is more bark than bite. It's essentially telling federal agencies to do what they were already supposed to be doing, enforce existing laws. The real impact will likely be in the messaging and political climate, not in any massive new enforcement actions. What do you think? Sound off in the comments below, and please make sure you're subscribed for more.